Are you looking for an escape from manufactured truth wrapped in selfish agenda? Don't you just want to have a real and raw conversation, all masks and rules aside? That's what you're getting here at Titan Evolution Podcast. Get rid of all the nonsense information and discuss everything under the sun without filters. Listen to real stories of real people who will put your current perspectives to the test, guide you on living the life you truly want, and see everything free from judgment and pretenses. Time to get rid of those unhealthy environments and let your authentic self shine. Here are your hosts, Travis Johnson and Carol Carpenter.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I have a very special guest today. Carol Carpenter is the CEO of MotoVixens and Iron Dog Media. She's an actress. She's a stunt driver, but you might know her as my co-host on the Titan Evolution Podcast. Carol, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How about you, Travis?
Oh, you know me. I'm doing fabulous. We were just chatting before we got started here that I'm having like a bad hair day. So if you're watching the video, it looks like my hair is there. In person, my hair looks great. But for some reason on the video, it looks terrible. But
I don't even want to talk about your hair, okay? Because girls have to go through so much more than men. They go and take their shower, hop out, all good.
Don't be jealous of how easy my hair is.
I am jealous.
Are you jealous? I don't even know how long this stuff is. It's crazy. It's crazy time. But we're not here to talk about my hair, even though it probably could have its own podcast series. We're here to talk about you and how amazing you are. And you already know what the first question is, Carol.
Oh,
what
crap.
makes you a Titan?
Probably my ability to just create and find opportunities and find those gaps and needs that people need and want, and help them through it.
Well, a lot of people can do that, right? But they usually just have the idea and they don't have any like drive to do it and get it done, or they might start something. But you're a finisher.
Yeah. I'm a closer. I don't like to start things I can't finish, and I don't like to play games that I'll lose. So
yeah, I did. As soon as you said that you're a closer, my mind just like jumps all over the place. It jumped off was it like Boss Baby? And he's like, cookies are for closers, and like yanks the cookies away from the other baby because it's hilarious.
Not a closer.
I am so glad. This is obviously way off topic, but I'm so glad like Disney, Pixar, and DreamWorks, they all created cartoons that are not only good for kids, but they're funny for adults too, to listen to stuff.
I am telling you, that was my saving grace when my kids were growing up, because there were times when they were a lot younger and we went to the movies and I was like, please just stick, toothpicks in my eyes and put me out of my misery now. This is awful. But when they started making these great movies like Toy Story, I think my son had that thing on a loop forever.
I just remember it, like, so if you're listening to this and you don't have kids, you don't know what we're talking about. A kid will find a movie and latch onto that thing and you will watch it 75 times. And that's not an inflated number. 75 it's like it's on all day. It's on repeat. You're watching it. There's nothing you can do. But thanks to some of our advanced movie making techniques and script writers, they've got little Easter eggs for the adults in there to enjoy. Yeah. So it's not completely terrible. Like Shrek is kind of vile, but if you're not an adult, you don't really know. You're just like, oh, that's funny. And you don't know why it's funny. And then you watch it as an adult, you're like, oh man, like this is pretty edgy stuff.
Yeah, I love it. I love the fact that they've incorporated a little bit of that adult humor so that, we're not bored senseless and the kids can enjoy it. We can enjoy it. They have no idea why we're laughing at the weirdest times, but I'm cool with that.
Mom, you're just so weird. I don't understand why you're laughing. Yeah. I can't tell you right now, but I'll tell you when you're older or you'll figure it out.
How about in like 15 years? I'll let you know.
Oh my God. Like I've gone back, like I've made a conscious effort the last year and a half or so to go back and watch some older movies. Like when I was over in Bahrain, I started watching all the Westerns. I had never really watched the Westerns growing up. I just wasn't my thing, or it wasn't available, or whatever it was, or it was rated too risky for me when I was a kid. And I'm an adult. I was like, you know what? I never watched any of these. So I went back and watched all like the Clint Eastwood, all spaghetti westerns, all that stuff, like Dirty Harry. Like I went back, I was like, these are great. Like I can't believe
They're
I didn't watch
cool.
these. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But you're the guest today. So we got to talk about you and all your interesting story. We talked about why you're a Titan. What did it take to get there? I know you're American born Chinese or Taiwanese, depending on which flag you follow or recognize Taiwan as a country.
It's easier to tell people I'm an American born Chinese. Sometimes they're able to connect with the Chinese part more. And then if I throw in Taiwanese, sometimes people get really confused, like, isn't that Chinese? And it's like, yeah, it is technically, but you know.
I do the same thing. I do it when I say I fly for the Navy. People are like, oh, you're a pilot. I'm not a pilot. I've never been a pilot. But if the conversation doesn't hinge on you knowing exactly what I did, I just kind of let it ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think then the conversation ends up going someplace you don't want it to go. And it's easier just to say American born Chinese.
Yeah, I guess. You don't know your ABCs, you're American born Chinese. Tell us about like what that means. Like, what is your family dynamic? I know it's not the same for everybody, but really that culture, as far as I understand, really prizes males, and you were the firstborn and you were not a male.
Yeah, well, obviously not a male.
Well, you got to ask. It's 2022. I don't know. I can't assume that stuff, right?
Yes. So I was the eldest. So both my parents are from Taiwan. My dad's very, very old, traditional, Chinese, and it is a patriarchal culture. And of course, males are, because they perpetuate the family line. I mean, they want a lineage of, in my dad's case, Lees. But it's a really interesting dynamic because he has a bunch of brothers and they all have children. So it's not like the Lee line will ever die, right? Mm-hmm. But in my dad's case, he wanted specifically his line, right, out of all of them. And so he had my brother, and my brother is 18 months younger than me. And he was looking for my brother to bear a son because that's how he wanted his bloodline to continue. But I was born, and my dad was an engineer, and he came to the States, and I was actually born in the States. I don't know if I was conceived here, but I know I was born here.
Are you an anchor baby, Carol? Is that what?
I don't. Well, I think about that, and there's been talk about the fact that the only reason I was allowed to survive was I was born in the U.S. And had I been born in Taiwan, it's not spoken of, but it's common practice, where they give the babies up, whether they, give it up for adoption or whatever. They get rid of the girls because they want the first ones in the lineage to be male. They want the eldest to be a male to anchor the family. And he couldn't get rid of me. I mean,
I don't know why he would want to. I think all of our fans agree that you're pretty awesome.
Oh, thanks. Well, my dad didn't think I was awesome. I was this constant thorn in his side. I was a reminder to him all the time as I was growing up. And as you can imagine, if you're a reminder of something negative for anybody, I became his personal punching bag, emotionally speaking, not actually speaking. But you never know, right?
Never can tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were born in Los Angeles, is that right?
I was. Yeah.
How was that growing up in LA? I'm from like Bumpkinville, northern Minnesota. So it's like being born in a major city as opposed to being born in essentially countryside is a much different type of lifestyle. Right.
Well, even though I was born here, my dad was an engineer that had contracts throughout the U.S. So we traveled a lot, and a lot like the military stuff. So depending on his contract and his projects, I've lived I've lived East Coast. I've lived in Texas. I've pretty much lived in quite a few cities if I look back. And we have pictures, of like, when we were in school, those really embarrassing pictures. And then of course our parents always put the city and the state that we were in. And we were in a lot of different places while we were growing up. Yeah.
It makes life interesting. That's for sure.
You don't get to really have a home base and a group of friends. I mean, you figure out very quickly, you have to make friends fast because you don't know how long you're going to have them.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
right?
it's one or the other, right? You make them fast, or you're just so frustrated with always moving that you're like, I'm not even going to try it this time. And then
True.
you end up being there for a couple of years and you're like, what the crap? Like,
yeah. Damn it, now I have to make friends, but it might be a little bit late,
It's just, it's one of those bizarre things. We know that you own the MotoVixens, but you weren't always a racetrack gal, were you? What kind of path were you on early in life?
Well, in our culture, going back to the way I grew up, in our culture, I don't know, overachievers. I don't know, like Asian mamas and dadas want their kids to be, lawyers, doctors, I don't know, some musical prodigy, right? So, of course, we all learned piano. That was kind of the thing that we had to do no matter what, right? So you had to learn some type of instrument. And I think my path was always drawn out for me. And it never occurred to me until, I made a change that maybe this wasn't my path, because from the time I could remember being little, and I was good at math and science and all that stuff, and don't be, stereotypical in what you say next, but but I had, my path basically just drawn out for me. And my mom was like, oh, you can be a doctor. And I'm like, okay. So I always assumed I was going to be a doctor, and that's what I studied for. And I took advanced courses when I was in high school, and I was in the gifted program, all that kind of stuff. And I was literally going pre-med, and that was just, it felt like that was my path. I don't know if that was so much I believed in it, but it felt like my path. So but then my mother, got sick. And when she got sick, and I think we went to so many specialists over so many years, and they couldn't figure out what it was. They knew it was a mass. And by the time we had moved to California, and by then my parents had been long divorced, but while we were there was a brand new hospital, Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach, that had just come up. It was a cancer hospital. And so she saw a specialist in there. And that's when we started really getting answers, and we found out she had cancer. And it was a terminal cancer. There was no recovery from it. The best we could do was have her go through treatment to prolong her life. But my mother she got really sick and, became a shell of herself. So I think there was a point in her mind where she was like, I don't want to live like this. This isn't living, is what she said. And she kind of gave up on the therapy, and she was just going to let it envelop her and just be done, because we don't have. Dr. Kevorkian was around. What he did was legal, but my mom really understood why he did what he did, because she was suffering and there was no relief to the pain, right? And so she just said, I don't want to live this life, and I'm tired of being on chemo. I'm tired of feeling sick all the time. So she ended up just letting it overtake her, and it spread. The minute she stopped taking treatment, I mean, it went everywhere. It was like a wildfire. It went into her lymph nodes and her brain. There were moments when I talked to her, she didn't even know I was there, who I was. It's a horrible place to watch your parents when you saw them so vibrant earlier in their life, So that changed me. And I was studying to be a doctor then.
How old were you when this was happening?
Through most of my teenage years, she had cancer. And I was about 19 when it all kind of came to a head, about turning 20. And so she passed away when she was 47. I was, 19, 20 years old at the time. It sucked, because embarking on your life and you have no safety net. And that's a horrible way to live and look at life, for sure. And so I knew every decision at that point on was going to be determined on how I succeeded. Sorry, you made me cry.
I did it to Ira, and now I'm doing it to you.
I know.
Yeah.
Ira, he's getting payback. Sorry. I never meant to make him cry. But
well,
yeah,
I didn't mean to make you cry either,
no,
but that's kind of the point of this, is to be authentic and vulnerable and really talk about the stuff. And I'll give you a second to breathe here, because
you never think that these things will affect you this many years down the road, and still sometimes it catches you by surprise, you know?
Oh, it certainly does. It's, I sometimes forget parts of my story because I tell my story so much, but I usually tell specific parts of my story. I didn't realize this until, I knew it years ago, but I had almost the same situation because I ended up moving in with my grandmother, and she wasn't pushing me to be a doctor. I'm going to say that right now. That wasn't part of my path. Because we were still just in survival mode, trying to like claw our way into, relevancy. And I moved out of my house at 16, moved with my grandma full time. I had spent probably half of my life living with her anyway, and I finally got into her place. I joined the Navy and got married, and within my first 2 years in the Navy, so 18, 19, 20, and that range right there, my grandmother, who had raised me, was the foundation of my life. The good foundation in my life. She had an aneurysm.
Oh,
and
no.
Yeah. Well, took that laughter right out of your mouth, right? She had an aneurysm, and I flew home. I was on detachment in Fallon, Nevada. For those in the know, that's where they had Top Gun for a lot of years. Was in detachment in Nevada, and I flew home on this emergency leave, and my grandma was then a shell of herself. She survived the aneurysm. And from that point until she passed away a number of years later, was a completely different person. She was no longer the well put together, in shape, rock solid person that I grew up knowing, that really took care of me when there was no one else to really fill that void. And so
it's hard to watch, isn't it?
It's almost impossible, because every time you see them after that point, you're like, this is not the person.
This is not that person I knew. Yeah.
Not that person I knew. And the nature of me being in the military and being away, it has another, added layer of, I don't know if it's guilt or what, but, I'm simply not able to be there for her. They're not stationed a whole lot of people in the Navy in northern Minnesota. That's just not how the Navy works, right? There's not a whole lot of reason for the Navy to be able. I could have probably transferred to the Coast Guard, got stationed in Duluth, there on Lake Superior, but that just really wasn't in the cards for me. So then every time you go home, I have my grandmother, who is only 40 years older than me. So I was 20, she was 60, and really, really deteriorating, and was no longer had control of most of her mental faculties. Every conversation, it was almost like, she didn't know who I was. Like the memory, she had pictures, and that was pretty much it. And the rest of her time with us, she got to meet both of my kids, but my son was now 14. I'm sure he was under 3, if not under 2, when she passed. It was just, I could probably do the math. I think 2013, so 9 years ago. Yeah, he was 5. It just tears on you. It really does, because of all the turmoil that happened in my life. And I'm promise we're going to push it back on you here, and not me talking about me. But she was that person that was always there, was always willing to open her home, was always willing to hold me accountable. She's the first person that really held me accountable for my shit in life. Like, Travis, you can't do that. She was that person that showed me that accountability is love, is a huge part of love. And no matter what I was doing, she was always willing to, pull the reins and pull me back in and say, hey, you knock this shit off. You knock it off right now. And I hadn't thought of that in such a long time. It's hard. It's hard when that happens to your primary caretaker. And then, like you said, the safety net is gone. So did you stay in the medical program that you were doing?
No, I did not. I think you have a moment there where, you're so busy. And I was, think about this. I was 19, 20 years old, planning for a funeral, trying to sell her house, get it ready to sell her house so that my brother and I could put the money in the trust fund that she left us, because she was very specific about the time frames that we would receive certain amounts of money, right? Because she knew that if a child, I shouldn't even say a child, you're an adult at that point, but if you get a sum of money of any type, what do you think you're going to do? Party the crap out. You wipe yourself out with partying, right? And in LA, it's not hard to do. And so she was very, very careful to, tell our attorney that this is the way I want it portioned out, and make sure that, they have money to survive. And I think that gave her a little bit of comfort. But, that piece of shit embezzled from my mother's trust fund, or our trust fund.
The lawyer?
Yeah. And I didn't find out about it until like a couple of years later. I actually, like you have this weird feeling that you just can't get rid of. And I was like, shit, I'm trying everything I can to keep the money in there, but the amount keeps reducing and I don't understand. And so I reached out to him and I'm like, hey, I'd really like to see the books. But he figured I'm like this young kid. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I figured it out. And I actually took the paperwork to another attorney. And he looked at it and he goes, how long has this been happening? I said, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And he goes, he's embezzling from you. We need to get him off the estate. And I was like, okay. And so we confronted it. And if I had been smart, but there's a part of me that's like, shit, we'll just let it go, right? Because my attorney was like, we can go after him. We could have him disbarred. We can do this. We can do that. And I had lost my mother, and there was so much pain there that I was like,
just
no,
rid of it.
Karma. I just believe in karma. He's a piece of shit for taking money from my mother that she saved her entire life to make sure we would be okay. But I figured karma would eventually get him in the end, right? Because it's not up to me to do that to somebody. I think you are responsible for your actions and the way you either help people or hurt people. If you choose to hurt people, know somewhere down the road, if shit happens your way, you deserve it,
Yeah.
That's all I can say. So anyways, I had a lot of time to reflect at that point, and I didn't want to be a doctor anymore. I spent hours and hours and, in these classrooms doing labs. At that point, was I engaged? Yeah, I was engaged to my first fiance, and he couldn't keep his dick in his pants for his life because I was gone all the time, and he basically was impregnating people left and right. So I was coming home to messages of, basically leaving messages they're pregnant. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
Well, I don't know if you know this, but in order for them to get pregnant, certain things need to happen.
Yes, no, I am very well aware of that.
You
And
were in medical school. You know what's going on.
Oh, I know how, yeah, I know the birds and the bees. I know how babies are made.
Storks.
Yes, storks. Sure. God damn. So yeah, that engagement didn't last too long. A couple, a year and a half, couple of years, and I couldn't take it anymore. He was a gambler and he gambled away our rent. So not only was I going to school, but I was working, and he would take whatever money we had collected for rent and go gamble it. He gambled it away. And I find out from my landlord that, where's your rent? And I just couldn't take it anymore. Between, you know, at that point I was med school, parent passed away, med school, and, you know, a boyfriend that was a huge philanderer as well as, you know, a gambler. I was like, I'm out, can't do this anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me make a change. And I chose to go down the business part of, instead of going pre-med. I just went, maybe I changed the business. And at the time, you know, I was working, I was working for a bank then as well. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys recall this, but there used to be a bank called San Juan Bank, and I worked for them. I was there. I was the loan officer's assistant. So at that time, you know, I was happy what I was doing. I was going to school as well, and everything seemed great. Kick dumb shit to the curb, and, you know, off to number two. And that's what happened. Was I actually in school met fiance number two.
Is fiance number two husband number one?
No. No, he was not. There was more.
This is not an indictment of your love life. I was just curious.
No, I met him in school, and he was persistent. Not my type, but extremely persistent. So, you know, sometimes you give people a chance.
If you wear them down enough, if you get them wore down enough, you can get them to say yes to just about anything.
Yeah. Well, and I had a pretty horrible experience with my first fiance, so it
sounds like it.
Yeah. And
pretty much anything looks good at that point.
Yeah. And I don't even think I told you, but my first fiance held me up at gunpoint in front of the bank.
What?
And yeah. The dude was crazy, dude. Crazy.
What kind of drugs was he on?
Yeah, I literally broke up with him, and after that he came to the bank and put a gun in my back. And my friend, who was a teller at the bank, was sitting in the window, and he's like literally looking, and his eyeballs get super big, and he's freaking the fuck out, right? And I'm like looking at him, like shaking my head, like, don't call, because if you call from a bank, it's different than just a call from, say, right?
Yeah, it's a different response. Yeah,
exactly. And so I was like, so I talked myself out of it with him, and I was like, hey, you do realize that everybody at the bank is looking at this, and if they call, it's not just a call to the local police. They send everybody. Like,
that's the FBI. It's federal.
Yep, FBI's involved, everything. And I go, this is on your record forever. Are you sure you want to do this? And I don't know. I don't know what compelled me to speak to him to get rid of him, but he left eventually. I walked through the door and everybody's freaking out. Like, what the fuck happened, you know? So we actually had to make a phone call to the police and to the FBI and say that I had a ex that could potentially be violent. If we make a phone call, we will specify whether it's a bank holdup or
right.
my ex-boyfriend. Yeah, that one was crazy. So yeah, anything looks better than that.
See, I think you should have called and had the FBI show up.
I know, but you have to understand that's not the kind of person that I am. Even when
I know it's not the kind of person you are, and that's one of the things I love about you. But sometimes helping, the way we feel like we're helping, is really enabling, and it's not helping anything. It's only kind of helping you in the moment, kind of, sort of, right?
Yeah.
Like
I was looking at surviving.
The douchebag lawyer, did he go on to embezzle from other people and create other havoc?
I have often thought about that. Like, did I enable him to go embezzle from others as well, in just letting him go? I mean, it does occur to me quite a bit, but
I'm saying this, but I did nearly the same thing. I had someone in my career that was coming after me in the military, and they tried to come after me when I was a student, and they tried to come after me when I was an instructor. I to this day have no idea why she was so hell-bent on getting me removed from the military. I did nothing either time. I had people encourage me to file an official grievance. Grievance about because I couldn't figure out, there was no logical reason why she was coming
Maybe
after
you
me.
look like her ex.
Oh man, that's so I did nothing, right? I did nothing.
Yeah.
And then I was coming back from the Middle East, from Bahrain, back to the same group of squadrons at Tinker Air Force Base. And I found out that she had been removed in her operations officer tour for fraternizing with some of the other younger enlisted or not younger commissioned gals and younger junior officers. And they
You know
removed
what?
her. They removed her.
Maybe.
The karma
Well,
came
so
and got her.
maybe she was targeting you to make your life harder so that she could fraternize with you. Hey,
It didn't feel that way. Maybe I have no idea. I have no idea what her motivation was. But she got, excommunicado. She got John Wicked out of the unit, and I guess she tried to say something on their way out the door, and then they said, "Okay, we're putting official remarks in your record," and those official remarks mean she's never eligible for another promotion ever again.
Oh, fantastic.
So she went from being selected, going to be number one, going to be a commanding officer in a squadron, which is a big deal, to saying, nope, you're going to be number two now. You're not going to get the shot at operational command. And then she opened her mouth again. And like, all right, now you're not even going to make commander. You're done.
Right.
You're done.
Officially
ended.
It's such an abuse of power. Like when people are in these positions of power and they use that, it makes me angry because, well, hold on. It shows the kinds of individuals they are, right? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, a person could choose to use that power for good or for evil. And we're going to the extreme and talking about people that use it for the wrong reasons.
Right. Well, I mean, that's part of the superhero code, right? So on my other show, Nonprofit Architect Podcast, I interviewed Jeff Gibbard, and his whole speech was how to become a superhero, right? We eventually figure out that we have superpowers. Something within us is just kind of naturally better than the herd, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's got something a little bit different. You and I are big on the resilience, right? We're big on the resilience. Me asking questions, speaking with confidence. I've had a few of them, but you find that you have a superpower. So everyone's mild mannered, and then you find out you kind of have a superpower, and then you cultivate the superpower, but then you have the fork in the road, which is the superhero code. You're going to follow the code and become a superhero, or you don't follow the code and you become a super villain. Right. Yeah. So when you have that power, Spider-Man quote, great power comes great responsibility. Thank you.
So cliche.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. But she got put in a position of power and chose not to follow whatever code and became a supervillain in my story. I'm sure there's someone out there right now that I'm the supervillain in their story. Because
without a doubt. At the end of the day, how are you writing that story? Right. We have to be careful how we write that story, because those choices, those decisions we make have huge consequences.
They do. So fiance number two is not husband.
Okay,
number
fiance
one.
number two. Pretty much inconsequential. Just a surfer dude.
I hope he doesn't listen to this.
Dude.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a super. Okay, so he was just a surfer dude, average looking guy, and I don't know, better than what fiance number one was. So
I'm just picturing a Yelp review on this guy. Just a surfer dude, ordinary looking, pretty inconsequential.
1.5 stars.
Oh my God.
I'm kidding.
You're gonna listen to this and be like,
joking about this, right?
You're listening to this and you can be like, bro.
By the way, in the book and in subsequent books, we do not include their real names. So unless you knew me back then, you wouldn't know who they are.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so then comes kicked him to the curb too, because he cheated on me. And you want to hear the reason why he cheated on me?
Because he's a cheater.
Well, yeah,
that's why. It's nothing to do with you.
Oh no, asshole. So I again was at school and busy at school and going to work, right? So he had plenty of opportunity to stick his dick where it didn't need to be. And he did. He took advantage of it. And so when I found out, and it does tell you in the book how I found out, I'm not going to go into it here, but he said, and I couldn't believe, I'm like, why the fuck would you do this? Right?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I've never dated anybody that looks like you. And it made everybody curious as to how I landed you, I guess. And so girls were coming up to him and wanting to, like, I guess, sleep with him. And I'm like, that doesn't seem like a good enough reason. So I'm out.
What? I'm trying to picture the dude standing there. Of course,
telling me this.
I'm just picturing him. I can only picture it because I can only picture him in like board shorts with like a dumb look on his face, like Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Like,
well, we probably would not be too far away from that point, because he was not just a surfer dude, he was fucking high all the time, and so yeah.
You got dumped by Jeff. No, you got cheated on by Jeff Spicoli. That's what happened.
Oh my God. So anyways, he's done. Pretty much was done with men at that point, because I had a very
on to women.
No.
Busy
life.
Busy life. Okay, there we
go. Very
go.
busy life.
Yeah.
And I started working for a high tech firm. And during the time I was working for the high tech firm, my now ex-husband, who was actually the third engagement that I did marry.
A third engagement. And we're 1 for 3.
Yeah, yep, 1 for 3.
That's Hall of Fame numbers in baseball world. So good job.
But he was working as a senior VP in our company, but at a different office. And he was promoted and brought to corporate, and I worked in corporate. And we crossed paths back and forth all the time. And I worked for the CFO as this personal assistant. So I did all the, like, all the reports for him. So he'd send them to me, I'd print them up. I did all those things. Anyways, so
were you a secretary or a personal assistant?
No, I was his assistant. I did anything that required the financial portion of it.
I wanted to bring that up because there's a huge part of society that talks down on secretaries for whatever reason. But then I think of people that are on the cabinet for the U.S. that are Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of State. They don't talk about those secretary jobs as being amazing.
Yeah, no, and he was great. Yeah. So yeah, I good with numbers. So, put the reports together, and that was a great time. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed that job a lot, but that was also the time my mom passed. And so prior to that, of course, I met my now ex-husband, and we clicked. It was interesting. We clicked. He was 16 years my senior, and I thought, yeah, so I don't know. Back then, it didn't seem that much because maturity wise, I had been on my own for a bit, and
right.
I had to grow up fast. So there was that element of it, and it was good. It was a good match at that time, right? So I ended up leaving probably like maybe 3 or 4 years afterwards, and became a wife and a mother. And I became a mother.
So at this point, did you pretty much, because you were in business, did you finish business school and then kind of became a household executive or stay-at-home mom? Did you have businesses during this time, or pretty
no
much
businesses during that time?
Yeah.
No. We had a discussion. I wanted to keep going and work. And he was very old school, and he was like, no, I would, I have enough that we can provide for us and our family. So I would really like to have you as a stay-at-home mom raising our kids. Right. And so I gave all that up and went and became a mom, a wife, you name it, so chaos wrangler, I like to call it.
Certified cat herder.
And I spent 21 years with that man, And a lot near the end, just like it is with every, relationship, near the end, it was extremely rocky.
Right.
And we had gone through several marriage counselors and very unsuccessfully, right? But eventually, I don't know. There was one point in one marriage counseling thing where he said something that really was like a knife to the heart, right? And I walked out, and that was the day I went and filed. I was done. I felt from that comment that I have zero self-worth in his eyes. I was only a wife and a mother. And the comment was, we had this meeting, and the counselor was talking to my soon-to-be ex and saying, you do realize what this means. Like, if you get divorced, you don't have your wife anymore. Your children are literally, going to be part of two households. Your life is changing forever, right? Are you not willing to make these changes? And he flat out said, deadpan. And I was sitting right there. That was the part that I couldn't get over. Like, did he forget I was sitting in front of him? And he said, what could she possibly do without me?
Oh, what a dagger to the heart that is.
So you can see why I left.
It wasn't clear a minute ago, but now it is crystal clear. Yeah.
That hurt more than anything, because that made me feel like I had zero self-worth.
Well, I mean, getting put in any box and saying you're just whatever the label on the box is pretty shitty. Having that be said by the person that you love the most, have dedicated your life to, it's horrendous. It's awful. It's the worst.
Yeah. So that's what happened with now ex-husband and fiance number 3.
Fiance.
I'm really not looking for a fourth fiance.
If we're keeping track, folks, we're on 3 fiancés, 1 husband, and so you get split, and you completely change your life. Some people might call it a midlife crisis.
Well, I think everybody thought I was having a midlife crisis, without a doubt. But this is something that, like, if you take the time to reflect and see some patterns in your life, you can make a change. And it wasn't till that divorce happened that it forced me to look, right? Because up to the time I was 20, I was on a path to be a doctor. Then from like in my 20s to my 40s, right? I'm not going to tell you how,
you just had a birthday.
Shush. Anyways, dismissing that.
Message me, send me an email, nonprofitarchitect@gmail.com if you want to know how old Carol is. I won't do that to you. I'm not going to answer. Maybe I will.
Yeah. Sure.
But you go through this whole thing. You have your life pointed in one direction.
Yeah. So 20 years into that. Yeah. And then again, another, just over 20 years, and I'm divorced now. And so what I saw was this cycle of every 20 years, this was happening. I'm like, well, what the fuck? I mean, I don't know what I'm doing even this many years later. So it felt like I was like on this roller coaster, the circular roller coaster, where 20 years is a ping, fuck, haven't done anything. Ping, And so I'm like sitting there going, yeah, this sucks. Let's try something different. And yeah, people might have thought it was a midlife crisis, but I went down a bucket list, and
it was an awakening, right?
It made me realize that I wasn't on the right path, for sure. And so I went down the bucket list, top of the list, riding motorcycles, and it terrified me. So I wanted to do it. And once I did it, it terrified me even more, which made me want to do it even more, because I don't like to not be good at shit.
Obviously. So we start racing motorcycles. What was it like getting into that world? Were there a lot of other women racing bikes at the time?
Not at that point in time. At that time, it was still very much all male dominated. I think if you looked around the pits, I was one of maybe 3 girls.
Were they
And
riding too, or were they just along for the day?
actual riders.
Actual
The rest
riders.
were, the rest were pit bitches, as we like to call them. Support crew.
I've been watching Yellowstone, and you get in the world of roadie, and you've got buckle chasers or buckle bunnies.
Well, no. Okay. Oh, no. Let me define this even more.
Yeah.
It's not okay. Not pit bitches, as in they're rut sluts and whores. I'm talking about pit bitches that what we even deem guys when they're part of the crew, like support crew.
Oh, so the ones taking care of you call pit bitches?
Pit bitches, yeah. So the joke is, like, if you're, in the pits and you're not the rider, you're somebody's pit bitch for the day.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I feel like that's gonna be my title if I comes to you guys race and hang out. I'm gonna be the pit bitch. If I come to one of these, I better have a shirt that says Travis Pit Bitch on the shirt. I'm not gonna accept anything less. And then I'll make you one that says Pug on it, and we'll let people figure out what that means.
Oh.
So you're racing. There's not a lot of gals racing.
Well, I was instructing, and one of the goals I wanted was to be a racer and get my expert license. So that was something I really wanted to do, and that was part of like my evolution into the sport. But while I was starting, I kind of fell in love with the actual idea of riding, and there was something super profound about it. It was not only just a group sport where you could ride with other people, but it was very much an individual sport. So you kind of got the best of both worlds, which I love twofers. If you can get the joys of both in one, I love that. And riding is very visceral. You feel everything, and when you're in a car, you don't, unless you roll your windows down, and it's not even the same.
It's not the same thing as riding.
No.
I've not had a sport bike, but I've had a cruiser, and like I took it up with me to Minnesota, and you're going through the lake country, 10,000 plus lakes. I think there's like 14,000 some lakes in Minnesota, and you're digging in the curves, and you're riding through, and you're feeling the bugs, and you've got the scent, and you smell all that stuff is just
the wind. I mean, when you pass cars, you can feel, the pressure push you. I mean, there's so many things, and it requires so much focus and skill. And I think there's a part of, maybe it's because we are entrepreneurs, the multitasking part of it, right? Riding and thinking and enjoying and, connecting. All that stuff plays into it. And it was, I don't like to be bad at anything. So I want to be good, if not better, and you're always striving for excellence. So, that racing portion of it was to become really competent, at it. And it was scary as shit. Let me tell you, scary.
I love doing things that scare me. Like before I jumped into my first airplane, I was like, yeah, I'm terrified. And before I went to flight school, like terrified. Before I went overseas, terrified. Like, yeah, get that feeling. And like, let's go do it.
Yeah, but don't you feel like because it is terrifying and you did it, that it kind of opens up your world and
yeah, absolutely.
Your experiences in life, and I can honestly tell you, driving in a car at the same speed I ride the motorcycle does not give me the same joy.
No.
It makes me giggle, yes, when I drive a sports car, but being on a bike, I mean, it's a completely different feeling. Like, it's so exhilarating. And you're always on the edge when you're on the racetrack, and if you're pushing it, of course, but there's something about that, and teaching people, and seeing the smiles on their faces. I like doing that. I get more back than anything. I love that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I love the feel of the power between the legs and the throttle and all the rushing air. And you take off your helmet and your face is all tingly because the air was pushing the blood flow. And now your blood's rushing back in. And you got tingles for like 40 minutes after you do this stuff.
Dude, you've got a smile permanently on your face for freaking days. you know?
I went with a friend of mine, Daniel. We went to Vegas for his bachelor party, and we do it over like a week. So we're not trying to jam everything into a single night like I don't know, so many people do. So one of the days I was like, what do you really want to do you haven't done yet? He's like, I want to go to the racetrack with these supercars, right? So we went to Vegas Motor Speedway. We got to ride around in like a Maserati SUV. They did like a demo, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be like the Maserati's got paddles. So he's ripping there. He's like, rip, 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 rip. We're ripping through the track, and it's a road course. It's not a like bikes. It's a road course. It's not like a big loop like NASCAR. And then he wanted to drive an Aston Martin and the Audi R8, and I wanted to try that new Corvette. And then I rode in a McLaren. Was it like S720 or 720S or whatever the model number is? And like totally was sporting wood for like the next 3 days, just ripping it around the track. I got in there, and if you guys have never done this, I think it's Dream Motorsports or Dream Racing. It's owned by an Italian race car driver, and everyone that rides along with you is a licensed like race car driver. They're all Italian guys. They're working on their skills and the turns and the timing and stuff, and they walk you through this, and it's so much fun. I had a hot rod back in the day that I got up to like 165. It was like hillbilly engineered, so it was not designed for a 165, but it had 420 horsepower and it weighed 1,900 pounds, so I could essentially go as fast as I was willing to go. But in the racetrack, I'm driving, I'm doing this stuff. He's telling me when to shift up, shift down, brake hard, all this stuff. And right in the McLaren, I passed 7 cars. It's just like 5 laps, and he's like, he's like, are you here working on your lap time? I was like, no, this is my first time on the track. He's like, I would have thought that you were fairly experienced. And I was like, no, this is just fun. I want to just come out and rip it around the track. And he's like, you're actually pretty good. And I was like, maybe I should do that. Well, now that I'm 40 and retired from the Navy, maybe I should get into racing.
There you go.
There we go. So how did you go
Chris
from
Matthews?
Huh?
Chris Matthews does it.
He does. And actually, I love Chris. Chris is a mutual friend of ours. If you don't know Chris, you're just not living your life, not living your best life. He's got some world records. He was the first person, I forget what set of tires, to get into the 4s, I think. 4.89 seconds in the quarter mile in like a 5.0 Mustang with a certain type of tire. He was the first one in the world with a specific type of tire to get going that fast. So 212 miles an hour or whatever it is. Like, definitely love doing that. It's not too late, but I want to know, how did you go from being a racer to deciding you wanted to do your own team?
So during the time I was becoming a racer, I saw there was a slow progression of women coming into the sport. There was more emphasis on younger and youth riders coming into the sport. And there was a couple of years I worked really tightly and tried to work really tightly with our local race organization. I have long since cut ties with our local race organizations because there are so many politics involved within, and there's too many people that are in positions of quote unquote power that misuse their power. And I honestly got tired of butting my head up against a wall, because when I'm trying to better the sport, but they keep trying to influence it to make money so that they can succeed that way, that's not for the betterment of the sport. That's just the betterment of their pocketbook. And I got tired of fighting it. But I worked pretty tightly at the time with them, and we saw an influx of women coming in. So we changed certain classes to include those women and young riders. Because really the future of the sport is women and the youth that are coming in. There are a lot of men in the sport, and I'm sorry, by the time they get there, they are not going to be the next MotoGP superstar. You don't become a MotoGP superstar unless you've been, like riding bikes since you were a child, and it comes so naturally. Like Valentino Rossi is the pinnacle of motorcycle riders, right? And he's just this happy-go-lucky, fun-loving guy, which is why he's so revered and loved in our sport. He's not, just like the cocky guy. He is really a humble, kind individual. And I sit there and I go, why don't we have more of these people, representing our sport. Instead, you have assholes and cocky assholes. And so just anything before assholes is pretty much good.
Well, see, you describing Valentino Rossi is much different than you described me the first time you met me.
Yeah, well, but you were very endearing when I met
But not
you.
the first look. The first time you looked, you were like, this guy is just this. What did
Yeah,
you
I
label
put you in a box. I stand corrected. I did put you in a box.
What kind
Very,
of box
very
was
true.
it?
Yeah, well, the box was, oh, he's going to be a cocky asshole, and it just, I don't know. You kind of were standing off alone most of the time. And when I first met you and you made your introduction, you broke the ice, because what did you say? You just tell everybody what you said.
So, hi, I'm Travis. I'm an asshole. Nice to meet you.
Yep. And that's how we met. And so that was a time when we were doing a mastermind and everybody had to go around and, say their name, do a brief introduction and blah, blah, blah. And this is how Travis introduced himself. And I completely took back what I thought of you.
Well, I got to take the edge off. I'm very confident. I hold people accountable. If they're in my circle in my life, I'm holding them accountable right away.
Right.
And that can come off like an asshole when I'm really telling people, like, when they're talking down to themselves or they're not following through on what they say. Like, I say something right away. I was like, don't talk to yourself like that. You deserve far better than that. You're worth more than you think you are. And some people aren't ready for that. So they get labeled an asshole. And a lot of people that meet me, like, when I first met you, I thought you were an asshole, but now I'm, some version of I'm okay with it now. Like, I understand why you are the way you are. And so I usually say that to kind of cut the tension. Like it's an AA.
It was
meeting.
good. It was effective.
Yeah. AA Assholes Anonymous. I'm trying to be an asshole.
I'm aiming to be an asshole to clear out my circle a little bit, because I think when you are kind and giving and generous, and people take advantage of you. And
you have to be able to be kind and generous and also enforce your boundaries.
Have my boundaries.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And I've allowed people to cross many boundaries because I would not allow other individuals to get away with some of the things they have. And I regret a lot of things, like going back to the group, the local organizations. I put up with a lot of stuff during that time. So I'd like to see eventually these local organizations be more careful about the people they choose in their offices. I think it plays a huge part as to the success of those organizations. And I don't think that it means that you have to exclusively use those individuals within our industry. I think it's good for everybody to have a chance to participate. And the years that I participated, I believe we flourished, but not it. I don't want to run another organization. I have no desire to, and I can't fight with the people within that organization because they've been there for a long time. And I know there's a lot of people that were like me, like, oh, I can change that, right? And you go in all gung-ho, and then you realize, no, I can't. I absolutely can't. You know what? I need to find a different way to really impact the world, and we can't do it this way.
Yeah, it takes too long to get to that position where you need to be, where that you have the ability to do something like that. But by the time you get there, you're so beat down by the system that you're now institutionalized and you no longer have that desire.
Don't want to go there.
It's crazy how that works, right? Do you save yourself or do you try to save the world? And here's the deal, people. If you're not working on you first, you're not going to be able to do the other until you are in order. So you're doing this. You started MotoVixens and you started dating somebody else.
Yeah, I was with him.
I really want to get into this because you are a strong, confident, beautiful, talented, intelligent woman, and we still find ourselves into a shitty relationship. Like what does this look like? Did it start out crappy?
It did not. You see, this is the thing, is it never starts out that way, right?
Because you wouldn't get in that relationship if it was that way.
But exactly. I mean, the
Yeah.
red flags would go up immediately, right? But in the beginning, I mean, of course, everybody puts their best foot forward. And, you know, it takes time for those cracks to reveal themselves. And sometimes those cracks take a little bit longer. So by that point, you're more, I want to say you're more emotionally invested, you know, or you start making excuses for them, or you know more about their background, and you have compassion for them, because that's naturally what we do, right? And so you're willing to excuse the poor behavior and overlook it, and then it becomes part of your daily. And then there's more added on, you know, and that's when things start to get very burdensome, is when you start realizing, oh my God, like, how did I get here? And it's a very slow drip.
It is. So how do your friends, was it your friends that helped you kind of clue into what was going on? Like, what did that look like?
I knew. I mean, we would have talks, and they were like, get out, get out, get out. And I was like, I just keep hoping he'll change. There's hope. Like, in my head, there was always hope, you know, and people don't change. They just don't change.
They do and they don't. It's this weird dichotomy, because so we create this operating system, and we basically accept without filter everything from birth till about 7 years of age. And then that's our operating system going forward for life. So if we're told that we're beautiful, intelligent, talented, that we can create anything with our minds, like, that's how we operate. You know, if you suffer abuse and then they say, I love you, like, your love operating system is completely whacked for that time. And it can take decades to snap out of it. But change, like real change, especially fighting whatever your inherent operating system is super difficult. So if you people out there in a relationship that are hoping for change, like, if it's that far departed from their normal operating system, it's going to take a huge amount of effort, a traumatic event, some kind of epiphany that forces them to change their life. Or what Carol's saying is, it's essentially just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And
well, I think we all want to believe that if they quote unquote love you enough, they will change. And
it's nothing to do with love.
They can't help themselves. They really can't help themselves. They're conditioned to be this way. And it took me a long time to figure it out. And at that time, I was struggling with a lot of stuff with MotoVixens, right? And with the added pressure of the relationship, I was literally going to have a nervous breakdown. Like, I was breaking down in hives. You know, every week I was going to the urgent care, and I was like breaking out in these hives, and it was just from the stress, and I couldn't take it anymore. And my advisors were like, you've got to go on vacation. Like, you are going to break if you don't go. And they knew that I was having the issues with my relationship. They felt it and saw it when they visited me, you know, and they even took me aside and said, how long do you think it's going to last? And I said, it's been several years now. I don't think I can take more. Right.
So what was the actual like final push to get you to sever the relationship, to choose?
I remember the day. I remember. I actually remember the day. Yeah.
I want to hear it. Tell me about that day.
So there were a lot of things that led up to this point. And he had never been physical with me, ever. And
what do you mean physical?
Laid hands on me in any way, aggressively, right?
Okay.
We had a huge fight, and it takes a lot for me to yell. Like, I'm not a yeller, but if you push every button that you could possibly find, eventually I pop, right?
Right.
And I did. That was the day I popped, and I had enough, and I was screaming and yelling at him. And he took his hand and covered my mouth and just said, don't talk to me like that. And I looked at him, and I was like sitting there looking at him going, oh my God, is this really happening? Like, I'm in shock, because
I'm in shock.
Yeah, I was completely in shock. And I took his hand off, threw it at him, and I said, don't fucking touch me ever again. Right? So I continue yelling at him. He takes the towel, like a hand towel, off the counter, and covers my face with it. Yeah, now I'm in absolute shock, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I didn't anticipate that, right?
So are you in fight, flight, or freeze?
So I'm a fighter, dude.
She's a
I am
fighter.
a fighter. So I sat there and I threw the towel at him, and I started screaming at him again. And he's like, my dad's here. He can hear us outside. I said, I don't give a fuck, basically, right?
Yeah.
I go, don't you ever touch me ever again. And I meant that in every sense. Don't ever touch me again, right? And he had the audacity, and this is where that, what is it that I call it? I can't remember it now. Where somebody does something horrific or says something horrific to you, right? And then the next moment, it's like a change of personality, and they praise you. Cognitive dissonance.
There you go.
And I remember sitting there, like, he came up to me after I told him never to touch me again, and he said, do you still love me? Like, as to soften my heart. And I just, what do you do? Like, what do you do in that situation? I was fucking infuriated. And then at the same time, I was like, there's that soft side of me that's like forgiving, right?
Mm-hmm.
But was it pushed past that point? And I just kind of looked at him and I said, I do, but I think I've had enough, right? And it that day changed the dynamic of our relationship from that point on. And he knew he was in the doghouse, but I think he always tried to ingratiate me in some way so that he could stay.
So once you asserted yourself, they sent the shockwaves into him to get him to at least feign or pretend some kind of behavior change.
Yeah.
And how long did the relationship last after that point?
Not much longer. It was really horrible. And there was a day we were working out in our hangar, and I was on the treadmill, and he's arguing with me while he's on the elliptical. And I stopped. Like, I turned off the machine. I got off. I sat on the edge of the table, and I looked at him and I said, would you please just leave? And he, without losing his stride, he just keeps going. He goes, no, I'm not leaving. You are. And I went, okay, I'm going to take that as a threat. Right. And so I came in, I was bawling, I came in, called all my friends for a referral to an attorney. Mm-hmm. Because we had a house that we bought together. Well, he was a joint owner on it. And it was to help him build credit because he didn't have any credit. He didn't pay for anything in this house. He didn't pay for the down payment. He didn't pay for any of the renovations. He didn't pay for anything, but he basically got to live a beautiful lifestyle that he had never lived before and treat me like shit. So it was a lesson to me that people don't change, that regardless of their past, they will continue being the people they are. They can't help it. And he wasn't one that was going to change.
So what would you say, this is 4 relationships that you've ended. What would you say to other people in situations like this? What would you
when you see those red flags, fucking run.
Damn the consequences, you'll figure it out.
You'll always figure it out.
It's the law of adaptation, right? You make a choice.
You will always figure it out. If it's bad for you and red flags are smacking you in the face and you keep sitting there, you're prolonging the inevitable. You're kicking the can down the road, and you'll have new issues and consequences down the road as well. So you can take care of it now and save yourself the extra consequences, or wait and have plenty more to deal with.
Or you save yourself years, right? Years of terrible things. Like, we trade our time and our youth thinking that it'll change or get better. And
I think we want companionship. I think we want somebody to love, right? And somebody to be there and be present. And I hear so many women say, yeah, he's not good for me, but he's there. But he's there. He's not contributing in any way, like to you emotionally, mentally, spiritually, in no other way. In fact, tearing you down, So why do we allow this to happen? And I quite honestly, especially with successful women, I think we're not quitters, and we are going to work hard to make that relationship work because we don't quit. We don't quit in our jobs. We don't quit.
Yeah. But I don't view it I don't view it as quitting, right? A lot of people are
but
told,
it's a mindset.
I know. I'm with you. I understand. When I look at one of my superpowers is that I see things just a little bit differently than the vast majority of people. And when I look at this, and I know a lot of women are told that being nice is the most important thing. Being nice, making friends is the most important thing. It is kind of, but we forget to be nice to ourselves first. And being nice to yourself first means you're taking care of yourself physically. You're getting the sleep you need. You're getting the hydration that you need. You're eating the right foods. You're exercising. You're taking care of your mind, making sure that you're doing the right things with your mind, your soul, your spirituality, whatever that means to you. You're taking care of yourself first, because if you're not filling yourself up, you are trying to pour into someone else's life from an empty cup, and you're not doing them any favors either. So you have to be able to take care of yourself first in order to give your unequivocal love to whatever it is. And if you're not taking care of yourself first, you're going to find yourself being toyed with or manipulated because you don't have the capacity, the energy, or the foresight at that point to defend yourself. But
don't you think our need for connection sometimes trumps it all? Like when I talk to these women, they take care of themselves.
You can connect.
Yes, no, true.
Anybody.
True, but
we're pretending like there's not 7.5 billion people out there. Well, they're really pretty. There's tons of pretty people out there. There's pretty people on every street corner in America and around the world. There's beautiful people. Let's not pretend that we can't find them. Is it hard? Yes, it's very hard. It's
quality people are hard to find. It's not hard to find people. It's not hard to find a person to connect with. A good quality individual that you want to share and spend time with, that actually betters you as a person and enriches your life. That's hard to find.
Right, but that is hard to find regardless of your current situation.
Correct.
It's hard to find regardless. And if we just accept whatever comes our way, we're never going to be satisfied with what we've had or created. I said I was a guest this week on another show on the Strategic Advisor Board. If you haven't checked out that show, please check it out. Our friends Jason Miller runs that show. Fantastic show. You have to be willing to do the hard stuff. Yeah. I've spent the last year and a half weeding out people in my life that are in scarcity, survival mode. I'm not discounting a bad day or two. That's not what I'm saying at all. But the people that are in my life, in my circle, they are abundant people. They're taking responsibility for what happens in their life. They're not waiting for some mythical apology from some other being. They're not, saying, oh, it's the government or this group of people or that group of people.
There's always excuses. Right. Yeah.
No one's coming to save you. You have to save yourself. You're never going to outperform the vision you have of yourself. And you're like, oh, I keep ending up in these situations. Well, it keeps happening because you had the opportunity to learn the lesson. And since you didn't learn the lesson, and you also don't think highly of yourself, you're going to get the opportunity to learn the lesson again. And it's going to keep happening.
And hopefully actually get something out of it this time.
But once you actually raise the vision of yourself and raise your personal standards, people that come in your world with the same kind of offering as those other jackasses, you're going to recognize it right away and be like, I already know how this story ends. Get away from me.
Yeah, exactly.
You're automatically going to know. Surround yourself with people that are encouraging you, that are making you better in life, that are doing the good things, that are holding you accountable. If you're in a group of people and they're not holding you accountable, they don't care about you in the slightest.
Agreed.
They don't.
Agreed.
So tell me about your life now. Tell me about, we went through
my life.
A lot of hard stuff.
Yeah.
We talked about terrible things. How is Carol's life now? I know you're a published author. I've got your book. if you're watching the video, you've been seeing me flash this whole time. The Elegant Disruptor, Carol Carpenter.
It is a bestseller.
Is #1 bestseller in what, motorcycle category, something like that?
Yeah.
That's awesome. We're going to have the link for you to get your very own copy in the show notes. Tell us about your life now, Carol.
Oh gosh. Now I run, MotoVixens. I have the book. I do this podcast with you.
That's the pinnacle right there. That's obviously
the pinnacle.
But you've also done like acting and stunt driving, and I see pictures of you and Keanu Reeves, who is surprisingly appropriate. He got caught being appropriate in Hollywood instead of inappropriate, right?
Yeah, I've done a lot of things. And my brother actually got me into stunt work early on after I got divorced. And so I had a talent agent. I acted, I modeled, I did all kinds of crazy little tidbit work.
This is starting in your 40s.
Yeah.
Where most women in Hollywood stop getting roles at 30, 35. You started in your 40s.
Yeah. So, but it's a hard business to be in, and I didn't want to be in there, and MotoVixens was just taking off. So I concentrated more on that, and I shifted my focus onto that. And, I'm 10 years this year. We're celebrating 10 years, that's the year before. That was my Rising Phoenix one. So that was last year, and that was the year. Yeah, that's my 10-year.
Oh, those on video, the 10-year shirt. I've got it here.
And you know why there's a tiger there? Well, it's #1, Year of the Tiger, right? And my son was born the Year of the Tiger. Wow.
Well, I would have thought there would be a cougar on here. How old is your current boyfriend?
Dude, maybe we go back to calling you an asshole again.
It might be true. I've made you cry. You've called me an asshole on the show. Maybe I have.
Oh God. Yeah. So no, right now everything's great. I am incredibly happy. I mean, I've done so many things this year that I never anticipated. Obviously the book was one of them, the TED Talk, another one, writing. God, I seem to be writing a lot. I'm a contributing author for a leadership series of books that's coming up. Executive producer for a movie that's going to be coming up. Have a reality show. My God, signature line of products. Am I an overachiever?
I don't know what you would call this, but what I know for sure is that you can design whatever life it is that you want to have.
Yes.
There's no box. There's no limits. There's no rules.
You know what your box is? This and this. How big are they?
Your head and your heart. How big are they for people that aren't watching? What do you tell yourself? What story do you tell yourself when you say you can't do something or you shouldn't do something? I use a lot of cuss words in the show.
Okay, so that's really interesting.
Should is a bigger cuss word than all of them.
Yeah, the shoulding. I don't believe in shoulding.
You should your pants.
You're horrible, Travis.
That's what it is. Oh, I should do this. I should do that. You're using should to guilt yourself.
Yeah. And
what you're doing.
And I don't believe in that. So I have never said in my life, I can't do something. I just don't have that in my vocabulary. Now, I'll say it's going to be fucking hard to accomplish, but I believe that if this is what you truly want, you can do anything you want. If you will just open yourself up and look into yourself, because you have to realize that whatever journey you're planning on going on to accomplish, whatever dream you want to accomplish, it's going to be fucking hard. And if you have your road,
what's even more hard? Staying in your comfort zone and staying on the hamster wheel. That's
then you know what?
Hard. You're just okay with it.
But if you do that, where are you going? Absolutely nowhere. At least this way, you're going somewhere, And trust me, there are times when you feel like there's just no way. But guess what? When you have that open heart and that open mind, you become extremely creative. you become very curious, you become very resourceful. And it's amazing to me what can be done just by doing, just setting yourself forth with your dreams. Because I think most of the time people just go, that's just a pipe dream. Says who? Says who is a pipe
talking
dream?
about
Like, do you really
themselves
want
and their
this?
limitations.
Yeah. But those are
Curiosity might have
limitations that you put on yourself.
Yeah. Curiosity might have killed the cat, but curiosity built the world. Curiosity is what sent people to every corner of this world, underneath the ocean, into the skies and into space. And with the new, was it James Webb telescope, you can see like the wings of a gnat 30,000 light years away. I mean, curiosity is what drives people. And if you're open and you're curious, you can get so much done. If you've never traveled outside of your state, please don't have an opinion about pretty much anything, would you? Keep it to yourself. It's very uninformed. Get out there, see the world, do things. I've been to all 50 states. I've been to 12 countries. I've been on the sea. I've got 1,500 hours of flight time. I'm an author. You're not. Like, we have done so much because we know that there are no limits other than what we can imagine. Everything
There's only
is terrifying. Do it anyway.
Yeah.
Do it anyway.
Well, because what do you want to do in this life? Just sit by and let life happen to you, or make life happen for you?
Is this all there is? Ask yourself, listening to this, is this all there is? If that answer is no, then please join us on the journey. Tell us how you plan on being uncomfortable today, tomorrow, and next week. And what are you going to pursue? And what are you going to do? You never know where you're going to end up. If you would have told me 10 years ago I would be a top podcast host and have a fantastic co-host like Carol, I'd be like, there's no way. There's no way. But that was 10 years ago me. Today me knows that's 100% possible. If you tell me right now where I'm going to be in 10 years, I'll believe you, because I know that we're living a limitless existence. Carol, bring us home.
No, you bring us home.
What? Tell people where they can get your book, for starters, The Elegant Disruptor.
CarolCarpenterBook.com. I have a social media website. That's CarolCarpenterMedia.com. You can join us at one of our track days, MotoVixens.com. I'm on all social media. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is all at MotoVixens. And I'm on LinkedIn as Carol Carpenter. So reach out. Would love to connect.
You heard it, CarolCarpenterBook.com, or search social media, MotoVixens, to find her. We don't want to make it too confusing for people. Catch us this week and each and every week for a new episode of the Titan Evolution Podcast. Thank you, Carol, for being my guest today.
Thank you, Travis.
That's all for this episode of Titan Evolution Podcast. We hope this no-holds-barred conversation opened your eyes on what it takes to live a genuinely happy life according to your own terms. Now that you've treated yourself to such a refreshing discussion, you cannot listen to nonsense content anymore. Be sure not to miss an episode by subscribing to the show at TitanEvolutionPodcast.com. Don't forget to share the word so more people can be enlightened, informed, and entertained. Thank you for listening.